Hello, Amber. How do we find you today?
Yeah, good, Martin. How about you?
Me, I am just peachy.
Peachy. Now,
Peachy.
talk to me about that. Where do you think that came from? Where does that expression come from?
I
I know because I mean, I remember it as a kid. We used to say it a lot. And yeah, I guess peaches are like, I don't know, pleasant.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm taking that this morning to mean the sun is out, had a beautiful hike. It's wonderful BC weather and ready, excited for today.
cool.
Because I know today is a thing that when I say this sentence to you, you're going to be like, oh, yeah,
Uh-oh.
I've heard that before.
Uh-oh.
Um, but I'm curious.
Mm-hmm.
So in the last little while, there have been some conversations at work, and I've heard these, whether I'm part of them or I'm just on the side,
Okay.
where I've heard phrases like "get over it" and
Ooh.
"just move on," or "can't you just," or "why is this bothering you?"
Yeah.
And what I'm really talking about here is when someone in the office is having conflict,
Hmm.
because those are all one side of the "can't you just get away from it all? Can't you just
Hmm.
put it all aside?"
Hmm.
Well, let's put it aside.
I would argue no one can.
Yeah.
The only way is through.
And so, with through in mind,
So it's through our topic today?
through is our topic for today. What's our way to handle this?
Yeah,
When
through.
it's through.
It's through, unfortunately. I'm gonna share with you quite candidly, I sucked at this. In fact, I wish this wasn't true because in my heart of hearts, I wish it was easier. I really do. The change manager in me, I like change and I liked change when I was a novice professional because it meant I could just get over stuff and move on. But here's what I've learned after 30 plus years. I brought all that shit with me. And that shit becomes incredibly heavy. It becomes it's kind of like it ties me up emotionally as a leader, and it doesn't allow for me as a leader to deal with the present conflict. Because what I recognize is the shit that I didn't resolve because I just wanted to get over it and change, that stuff's still there. I still have those wounds. I still have those vulnerabilities. And when a present conflict erupts, I can't deal with it because I'm dealing with the shit that I didn't deal with 25 years ago. So here's the hard part. And I, I, I just cannot impress upon people enough. The only way is through, which means if someone says at a workplace, can't you just get over it? The answer is no, because I believe wholeheartedly, and psychologists and psychiatrists would agree with me based on research that I've done and their research. It will be on our deathbed. Those things will still be with us. The things that we have not gone through, made peace with, integrated, and then moved on from healthily, that stuff will still be there right at the end. And that stuff is what actually creates our bias and our blind spots as leaders, as workers, as colleagues, as friends. This is where all of this stuff is. And if we continue to change or get over it and move on without dealing with what's really happening for us emotionally, those issues will carry. And they do. I still have so many that I am unpacking. And I'm in my, 50s, and I am aware that I have much work yet to do. And when I was in my 30s, I thought I had it figured out. So the older I get, the less I know. And I think what I'm discovering is the older I get, the more aware I am that what I thought I knew wasn't the full truth. And that was the get over it is an immature, novice leadership move. So, for our listeners, if you're in a work environment, if you're in an organizational culture where your leaders are expecting you to get over things, I tell you right now, they're immature. They do not understand. They're trying to push an agenda in the hopes that they can change their current state to a future state and somehow get away with not having to deal with the shit in front of them. But I can tell you, they will not win that. So the question becomes, will you be there? Will you stay there? Will you continue to be a part of that culture? Knowing and understanding or having an inkling, maybe even because I'm telling you that the only way is through. And I'm really encouraging in 2026, no matter where you're at in your career, you need to be writing your own strategy about where you want to be positioned and who you want to associate with for your own mental health and wellness, for success, for whatever metric you want, whether that's money, whether that's power, authority, position, all of it. It's great. It's fine. You got to have a strategy. So, a lot of my clients, I will say, if your strategy to stay here and tolerate what you know to be immature leadership, if that's a part of a strategy that you're leveraging to get to the next thing and you have a path that you're planning, that's fine. Then you can metabolize some of that, learning from it, bearing witness to how unsuccessful that is. Get over it. Come on. Nobody does that. We don't. We're humans. Humans don't. We don't get over things. We do not. We only go through things. So if it's like I said, if it's a part of your overall strategy, great, fine. If you're just there thinking, oh, I can't do anything about it, or this is just the way it is, shame on you. You are cultivating your own immaturity when it comes to leadership. And you will only ever find yourself caught up in, and I mean, I've said shit a lot today so far, but I guess it's the word. Maybe that's the title for this one. Like, you will stay in your own shit. You will stay in the organization's shit, and that shit will belabor you your entire career. It just will. The only way to free yourself from it is to approach it, to deal with it, to walk with it, go through it, integrate it, and then use it as fertilizer for your future self.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The shit you can't get through or get over.
Yeah.
Wonderful title.
Hmm.
But I just love what you had to say there. That was absolutely brilliant. I heard two different things, though, and I just kind of want to bring each out sort of as part of a question. I remember years ago reading Stephen Covey, and he was talking about the emotional bank account, and that uh, we put credits and we take debts, and anything that we take a debt on that we don't pay, you pay another day.
Right.
And what I'm hearing here is something like, well, you don't get over those debts.
No.
Those debts and those credits are out there.
Yeah.
And if it's an economic strategy that I'll keep this debt for
Absolutely.
now, absolutely. Put it in a box and let it sit over there.
Yep.
But you're paying for it one day.
Definitely.
Everything gets paid for one day.
Well, it's like somebody was talking to me, and now I'm a Canadian, and we have, RRSPs, right? Registered Retirement Savings Plans from our, wonderful government. And people say, oh, it's a great way to save money long term. And I'm like, arguably, yes, but you will still pay tax on that. Because everyone thinks, oh, it's a great tax haven. And I'm like, it's no haven. It's just delaying the taxing. To which people go, oh, no, 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 that can't be right. And I'm like, no, no, that's right. You're right. It's a great way, but you are not getting away from paying the tax on that money that you invest and save. It's just, you don't have to deal with it today. It's a layaway plan.
I was just saying it's deferred. It's deferred until later.
Do you remember, though? It's so interesting. Do you remember the layaway plans of, like, I remember the store in Canada. It was called Zellers. And it was owned, or towards the end of its life, was owned by the Hudson's Bay Company. And of course, the Hudson's Bay Company is no longer in existence either. But that was a big deal where, certain times of the year, if you wanted to buy big stuff, you actually laid it away and put little payments on it before you could take it home. Boy, we don't do that anymore. We just put it on the credit card and lay away that. But I think this is the thing. And I love that Covey's example of a bank account is that, as leaders, as professionals, as colleagues, we have this account of our career, or we ought to. We should look at it that way. And there's so many valuable things that we can put into that. We can put into, I mean, obviously money goes in there too, but like things that we want to achieve, experiences we want to have, ways we want to grow, change our career path. And positive experiences are great in a work environment, but in my own experience, it's been the negative situations that I found myself in that I have learned the most from. And those are all in this account that I can draw on at certain times. What I cannot do, though, and I can tell you, is I cannot lay it away forever. I can't lay away the bad stuff forever because I find it, like I was saying, a recent conflict that I had. I realized in the moment of the conflict, I felt incited and this bubbling up of emotion in me. And before I was acting on it, I remember thinking to myself, what is really going on here? Not with them, with me. And asking myself, this feels a little bit more emotional than this situation from a logical, kind of rational stand should cause. Why am I acting this? Peel back a few layers on myself, realize, oh, I have trauma here. I have been in a situation similar to this before. And because I didn't deal with it, my bias right now is to like scream and shout and burn the whole thing down, which is a completely irrational response to what is, yes, a conflict, but it doesn't warrant that level of response. Why am I acting that way? It is because I have got shit that I didn't fully deal with. And the hard part is, of course, depending on when the conflict comes. And in this case, thankfully, I had space. This was a conflict that wasn't happening, face to face. So I really did have time to steal away and go, what is wrong with me? In that asking that question, I realized, oh no, this is just some unresolved stuff. It still keeps showing up for me. And I asked myself, Amber, when are you going to fully deal with this and let it go? When are you going to do the through work? And what does through look like? I mean, first and foremost, through, in my experience, it's never solo work. It always involves getting support and help. And in some ways, I mean, Martin, you've been instrumental in helping me through some of my through work. I know I have had the same effect on you. So it doesn't have to be that I pay someone to help me because you and I don't have that relationship. But sometimes this is done with my coach. Sometimes this is done with a therapist. Sometimes this is done with friends, colleagues, other professionals, mentors. But the getting through these things, it often really does involve us being intentional, finding a bit of a team that we can surround ourselves with, and actually just thinking through. And in this case, this last conflict I went through, I was able to not behave as badly as I wanted to because I was able to create a bit of time and space, self reflect, realize, oh, I'm losing it here because of past things that I haven't resolved, not because of the current situation. And then I was able to kind of prefrontal cortex logically and reasonably come up with a plan. And by the time I was getting back to this person, the conflict actually wasn't as much as I kind of originally thought. But my emotions went haywire. That's because of the stuff from the past. So like this is absolutely this is the secret to those leaders in our life that we look at and we watch and we think, wow, they're calm, they're composed. Their level of resilience through experience. What is that? How do they have that? It's this. It's not that they haven't gone through stuff. It's that they've gone through stuff. They've done the through work. And that through work has built resilience for them. And that level of resilience means when the issues come, when the conflict comes, they're not immediately reacting based on their past experiences because they've been able to separate that out because they've found critical ways to kind of file it away as these are experiences that I will always remember, but they don't have to have the emotional attachment to me the way they used to. And that takes work. That really takes work and effort.
That's awesome. As I was hearing you talk about doing that work and what that means to an organization, um, I just was thinking about something, and it's something you and I have talked about before, which is the notion from HR that people don't leave organizations, they leave bosses.
Yes.
And as I was applying sort of in my head, Covey's debt,
Mhm.
it really comes down to when you go to work, they pay you, and that's a certain credit,
Yes.
staying loan, but they also treat you a certain way,
Mhm.
right? People want to be treated a certain way. People want to be used creatively. You know what I
Yes.
mean? They don't want to be ignored.
Yeah.
And really, when I think about like the Great Resignation and those sort of things, it's just the debts outweighed the credits. And we've
Mm.
got a space where this is happening, I think, more and more,
Mhm.
where and this is an expectation problem, where people are expecting the world
Mm.
for not what we used to, like we used to be compensated in a certain way for a certain amount of productivity.
Mhm.
But I think the expectation of productivity has risen when the compensation in any of those forms, respect,
Mm.
finance, whatever has diminished. And to me, as I'm hearing you talk about this, what I'm really hearing is an EQ vacuum.
Absolutely. And I think, a lot of organizations, you and I have great thoughts about these organizations because we often talk about them. We won't name them in this conversation, but a lot of organizations, due to just sheer survival in a tight market with evolving, ever changing complexity, they have just continued to sustain themselves based on a model that no longer works and probably didn't work for most of the last 20 years. But the organizations themselves exist as like a what's the right term? It's like they can't go away because they become core to our way of life. The environment we're in, whether it's a local smaller organization, whether it's a national organization, whether it's an international organization. We can't imagine a future state without this organization. So as a result, it just sort of continues to perpetuate itself. And it does it poorly. And it actually it itself represents a vacuum of EQ, and it doesn't have to have EQ because it's a machine, and the machine itself continues to just lumber along, cogs and wheels, and it continues to manufacture and produce and or exist to pay people their wages and to provide goods and services that other people expect, and it's not thriving, and it's not actually hardly even surviving. It just exists because yeah, because of like, we always do it this way. You know that old adage? Well, we have to have this. It's kind of funny that I brought up the Hudson's Bay Company because I think if you asked most Canadians, we would say the Hudson's Bay Company will be around forever. It's one of the oldest companies in there. Like, we can't, how could we ever not have a Hudson's Bay Company? And then 2025 comes along and you're like, oh, that's how. Oh, oh, that's how. Why is it no longer with us? Exactly what I just was explaining. And the funny thing is that a lot of us are shocked when it happens. But I think, man, if we'd have been thinking critically about what was going on at the Hudson's Bay Company, we should have seen it coming. These lumbering kind of and completely devoid of an understanding of leadership and even sort of, I would say, like the social enterprise marketplace demands of 2025, 2026, the global economy, the way people exist in the marketplace anymore, the way we purchase what we care about. There's just a complete lack of ability to stay on top of any of those trends, to follow any of them. And, the funny thing is that what does it leave as its legacy? 4 colored stripes, right? Like, that will be its legacy, and it will be a huge part of Canadian history, and all of those things will go to museums, and some of us will own those 4 striped colored things, and it will feel nostalgic, but in reality, you're looking at an example of an organization that just didn't continue to stay current, didn't think about the emotional intelligence vacuum that they were creating. And that went not just to the people that worked there, but to the way it presented in the marketplace and to, even the brand itself. The brand reputation just lacked that. And, we we do vote with our pocketbooks as consumers. And I think in a work environment, I always try to remind clients when I talk to them We forget that every day we choose to get up and go to work. We actually make that choice every day. It's not when you signed your employment contract. That was a choice for you to sign the employment contract, to agree to the terms, the policies, the procedures, and the role expectations. But that signature wasn't your daily commitment. Your daily commitment is your behavior. It's the act of showing up. And then once you're present, you also have a choice, and that is, how are you going to do what you said you were going to do? You do it well? Are you going to, are you going to achieve it well, or are you going to do it just enough to get by? We make choices all the time. We feel like we don't have choice because, of course, we've got to have the paycheck to sustain ourselves. But the choice is actually made every day. And we get really disempowered by money, which is why I always, money is not a great metric. And when people value themselves based on how much money they make, they just completely, you talk about heaping on shit, because money as a metric is never going to give you your worth. None of us are ever going to be paid our worth. It just doesn't happen, because money is just a tool. It's just a tool. We invented it. And it is a massive tool, and it makes, the economy thrive and not thrive, but it is just a tool that we invented. So if we base our worth over that, we will lose touch with how much power we possess still as individuals. So your power to choose.
Because we've had many conversations on this power to choose, that I believe in daily choice for all good decisions. For me, marriage is a daily choice. Being a parent is a daily choice. It is how I show up today in parenting. It is how I show up in marriage. It is how I show up at the workforce. What is my daily choice today?
Yeah.
And I have the 365 rule. You can choose certain days where you don't choose to be the good partner. But out of 365, if you choose that more often than less often, there's a consequence. Coming back to that Covey Detson, you choose to be a lackadaisical parent too often, there's going to be a consequence that goes with that. And same in the workplace, that we have to choose this every day. So I guess with a few minutes left, what do you think is the most valuable thing people can be doing with that power of choice?
Work on the through. It's interesting because for some reason in this conversation, and I never know where we're going to go, but for some reason the word through is just resonating for me. That and shit, of course. But I think it's because it's been my journey. I cannot believe how many times I wake up every single day, actually. And if I take just a brief moment and think about myself, there's something to work on in the through. And of course, that's unique to every individual. But when you feel something, anything, you are embodying the human experience. Don't shut yourself off from feeling it. The feeling, the emotion, this is gold. This is so important as humans for us to invest time in. How are we feeling? And when we are feeling poor, when we are feeling uncertain, when we are feeling some of those negative emotions, this is where we need to do the through work. Why? Why am I feeling that way? And arguably, Tasha Urich wrote a book called Insight, and it's a fantastic book. I highly recommend it. And it really is about this journey to self-awareness. And she coins the phrase, self-awareness unicorns, because she did massive amount of study on figuring out how to be self-aware, discovering that there are unicorns out there, so she called, that have great self-awareness. And then the rest of us have almost no self-awareness, but we think we do, which of course is the irony, is we're all walking around thinking we're self-aware when we're not self-aware. But in her book, what she talks about is this idea that we need to think not about why something has happened to us, but ask, what can I do about it? And so she would say, and I agree with her, thank you, Tasha, how do you do the through work of dealing with your shit? She would say, you ask, what can I do about this shit? Not, why did this shit happen to me? Or why do I feel this? She would say, self-awareness unicorns, or people who naturally have higher self-awareness, they ask questions with what, and the what leads them through. And the why can spin us into sort of a self-awareness, literally like vacuum or, tornado of emotions, and can make us feel worse. But asking, like, what can I do? What did this teach me? What am I learning? What am I feeling? And what can I do about that feeling? Those questions help with the through. And when conflict happens in a work environment, which is where we started this conversation, when that conflict is happening, do you have the ability to ask yourself before responding in the conflict? Do you have the ability to ask yourself, what is actually going on here? What am I feeling? What can I do about what I'm feeling? And what do I or should I do about this situation? It's giving ourselves the opportunity to use our prefrontal cortex. And so often we don't. Why? Because the shit we haven't dealt with in the past comes rushing in and makes us behave in unbelievably unintelligent, I would say, certainly or lacking emotional intelligence ways. That gets us into trouble. Strong, capable, earnest professionals recognize the through work makes the difference. And I often tell people too, when the conflict happens at work, um, responding in the moment can be as simple as, I hear you. I need some time. I will get back to you. And stealing away, not to avoid it, to go and do the through work, so that when you come back, you are of a present mind, able to. That's what strength and whining, defending, literally throwing a professional temper tantrum, which we see often. That is exactly a lack of throughness. That person has not done the work. They've got so much shit they brought into that conflict, and they're not dealing with that stuff, and so that stuff is in the way of this stuff. And the through work it's what will make the difference. So any way that you can do the through work. And I would say get Tasha's book, read Insight, ask yourself the what questions about your experiences. Get help. I had to get help. I still need help. We need help. We need to be in conversation and dialogue. We need coaching. We need therapy. Lots of us, we just need to be in an environment of being open to wrestle these things out, because the shit is big and we all have it. We don't all have the same stuff, but we all have it. So that's a real kind of commiseration point also, when we can gather together. You don't have mine, I don't have yours, but we both got it. So we can talk.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for helping us get through this episode.
Yeah.
And as we close off this one, I look forward to going through another episode with you in the future, with or without this much shit.
Thanks, Martin.
Have a good one.